Good evening, all. Thank you very much for being with us. This is our first Blue Runs Deep panel of the year. We are very excited to be together. If it is your first time or your seventh time, you know that I open up the space and give a warm welcome, which I am doing right now, and go over a couple of the details just to make it the best experience for everyone. So first things first. If you would consider, please, renaming yourself. So that means you can go over the top 3 buttons in your top right corner. Gives you an opportunity to rename yourself. If you would consider adding your class years and parent years, if that pertains to you, it's always fun for us to see who's with us and represented across the decades. We also do it purposefully in this way to be in community and not in the webinar. So if you feel so moved to be on camera, we love to see Andover faces across the screens, and also very much respect if folks want to keep their camera off. We are recording the program tonight, so folks should be aware of that. And if you go along the bottom of your screen, there is an opportunity for you to turn on closed captioning if that also makes for a better experience. Speaking of better experiences, if you go to your top of your screen, there's something that you can click on if your system isn't already on it, and that is to be in speaker view. We have folks here from the alumni office who will help drive the program, and they will make sure that the folks who are speaking are highlighted, and that will enable you to have the best viewing experience and actually be able to see, even among all the dozens of people who are here tonight, exactly who is speaking. And if everything I just said went in one ear and out the other, and you have some questions, I am the person you can go to at any time throughout this evening. I'm Jenny Savino. I've got the great pleasure of working in the alumni office. I am joined here by my colleagues, Naomi Mashburn and Meg McGuinn. I actually see some other folks from our office in here too, but the 3 of us are kind of holding down the fort tonight. So if you have any kinds of questions, please feel free to open up the chat and come our way directly. Okay, so with all of that babble, again, thank you very much for being with us this evening. A warm welcome to everyone. A big thank you to our stars who have made the time to be here, and our panelists as well. And at this time, I would like to introduce Angelina Zhang from the class of 2027.
Good evening. Welcome to our alumni, parents, faculty, staff, and students. We're so excited to welcome you all into this space. My name is Angelina, and I'm an upper from China. I'm a member of STARS, and I'm here to introduce today's Blue Runs Deep program. The Blue Runs Deep Speaker Series was launched in 2021 by the Student Alumni Representatives, also known as STARS. We're a group of students interested in connecting with alumni in various ways through programming with the Alumni Office. Today's focus is alumni in nonprofits and philanthropy. STARS will pose questions that we have written, and we also have questions submitted ahead of time from attendees. Through the course of this conversation, you'll learn from our panelists and their professional path since Andover. Many of our questions will be directed towards a single panelist, but we encourage panelists to elaborate on other responses. We only have an hour together, so we'll jump right in. To introduce our panelists, I would like to welcome Brady from the class of 2027.
Thank you, Angelina. Hello, everyone. My name is Brady Cantor, and I'm an upper from San Francisco, California. Our first panelist is Mr. Dario Collado from the class of 1998. Mr. Collado was the first of 7 siblings to pursue a college education, graduating from the University of Massachusetts Amherst in political science and Spanish. He went on to study business leadership at Georgetown's McDonough School of Business, where he graduated with honors. He then started the first of its kind leadership development program in the country, the Harvard Latino Leadership Initiative Program. This brings together rising college seniors from across the country free of cost to Harvard's Kennedy School for intense leadership development training, many going on to attend Harvard's various graduate programs. Mr. Collado believed deeply in the mission of the program since he had traveled a similar path himself and wanted to offer other young people a similar opportunity. Mr. Collado worked as a corporate development officer for Boston Children's Hospital, leading to its Milagros para Niños initiative, which offers funds for essential services to the underserved Latinx community. Mr. Collado currently serves as the Vice President for Strategic Development for the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, where he has worked for almost 10 years. The Hispanic Heritage Foundation is dedicated to advancing education, workforce development, societal impact, and leadership, having reached millions of Latinos across the country through creative, impactful, and innovative programming. Mr. Collado grew up in our backyard in Lawrence, and we warmly welcome Mr. Collado back home tonight.
Thank you, Brady.
Thank you, Brady. Hello, everyone. My name is Barrett, and I'm an upper from New York City. Our second panelist is Mr. Meka Egwuekwe from the class of 1991. Mr. Egwuekwe received his Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Morehouse College and then went on to obtain his master's at Duke University. Mr. Egwuekwe has 19 years experience as a software architect and believes deeply in youth development. He's been a long-serving alumni admissions representative for Andover. Having identified a shortage in tech opportunities for underprivileged youth in his hometown of Memphis, Mr. Egwuekwe co-founded CodeCrew in 2015. As a nationally recognized nonprofit that has mentored over 15,000 students in AI and computer science, CodeCrew has been a major advocate for computer science education policy in Tennessee and across the nation, notably playing a key role in the successful push for Tennessee to make computer science a statewide high school graduation requirement. We welcome Mr. Egwuekwe here tonight.
Thank you so much, Barrett.
Thank you, Barrett. Hello, everyone. My name is Annie, and I'm an upper from Andover. Our third panelist is Charter Trustee Allison Picott from the class of 1988. She received her Bachelor of Arts from Trinity College and a JD from the University of Pittsburgh. Ms. Picott began her career in litigation and rerouted her career trajectory in mission-driven educational advancement, first returning home to Andover to serve as a leadership gift officer for our own Office of Academy Resources, then transitioned to the Walnut Hills School in Natick, and then on to Boston College Law School. She then served as a developmental consultant with the Wayland Group and then founded Advancement Advisors. Ms. Picott currently serves as the executive director of the Lenny Zakim Fund, using her extensive nonprofit knowledge and volunteer expertise towards advancing its mission to provide financial support, education, technical assistance, and networking opportunities to small community-based organizations and community leaders who are passionate about social, radical, and economic justice. Ms. Picott helps to lead the strategic direction of Phillips Academy as a key member of the Board of Trustees and has demonstrated a deep commitment to Andover by giving to Andover every year since she has graduated, 38 consecutive years. She currently sits on the Building Committee, the Committee on Trustees, and the Equity and Inclusion Committee on the board. We're honored to have Ms. Picott here with us tonight.
Thanks, Annie.
Thank you, Annie. Hello, everyone. My name is Antonella, and I'm an upper from Chicago. Our fourth panelist is Ms. Nicole Quinlan from the class of 1992. Ms. Quinlan received her Bachelor's of Arts from the University of Colorado Boulder and a Master's in Business Administration from the Babson College. Ms. Quinlan is a seasoned fundraiser with 18 years of experience building partnerships, fundraising strategies, and development systems for a variety of nonprofit organizations. Ms. Quinlan was a corp member for City Year in the early 90s and then worked for City Year for 13 years, rising to Senior Vice President of Development Strategies and Operations, overseeing the science and technology side of the organization's $80 million annual fundraising efforts. Currently, Ms. Quinlan serves as a Director of Operations and Systems for Upstream USA, the nation's largest evidence-based contraceptive access project, transforming contraceptive care delivery at primary healthcare organizations nationwide. Ms. Quinlan is an outstanding volunteer for Andover who is continually offers her time and experience, currently serving as class agent for the class of 1992, a gift planning agent, and an annual Giving Board Alumni Council. We're thrilled to have Ms. Quinlan as part of our panel.
Thank you, Antonella.
Thank you, Antonella. We'll kick off with our first question to Mr. Collado. It is extra special that you could join us for this conversation during Hispanic Heritage Month. Your role at the Hispanic Heritage Foundation allows you to connect with the Latinx community in the U.S. and abroad. I understand you recently escorted Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor to a Bad Bunny concert in Puerto Rico. How timely that Bad Bunny was just announced to be the Super Bowl halftime performer as well. Can you share how this event came about? Why was this an important and culturally relevant moment? And how does the Hispanic Heritage Foundation support these cultural celebrations?
Absolutely, Annie, thank you so much. And thank you all for having me. So quick background, I've known Justice Sotomayor for over 18 years. When I was at the Harvard Kennedy School, we were building the Harvard Latino Leadership Initiative, which is now a $40 million fellowship. So $20 million for African-American students to attend Harvard for free with a master's degree through Sheila Johnson and BET fame, and $20 million through Latino donors. So Latino students can attend, or those that want to affect the work within the Latino community, attend Harvard master's degree for free. So during that time in 2008, when I started there, I was doing a lot of research, and one of the individuals that started coming up, that kept coming up, was a federal judge, Sonia Sotomayor of New York, who actually became famous because she stopped the 1993, I believe that was the year, baseball strike. So I had reached out to her, and we just became kind of pen pals, emails. We'd have conversations. I would tell her, hey, this is what we're trying to do. So through her kind of mentorship, through that time, we were able to build this incredible program that many students have graduated from Harvard master's degrees with. So in 2010, when she was nominated by President Obama to become Supreme Court Justice, she sent me an email from her Supreme Court account, and she said, hey, I really want to stay in touch with you. I know we've never met in person yet, but you should come to Supreme Court to chambers to say hello. So that was pretty cool. So we ended up bringing a group to the Justice Chambers in Washington, D.C. at the Supreme Court. And it was just an incredible experience. And since 2010, we have lunch, we'll have coffee, we'll have tea, and just kind of hang out. I consider her kind of a tia in a sense, somebody like just family. And so what happened was earlier this year, obviously there was some talk about maybe she should step down with President Trump coming to office. She's a lifelong diabetic. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, I was just watching the news and I just wanted to tell you that I was thinking about you. And so she emailed me right back and she said, your buddy's Michelin star restaurant, I think it's a good time for us to go have dinner and catch up. So those are kind of like our relationship really special. So I really know that she needed probably somebody to, talk to, whatnot. So anyways, make a long story short, we went to dinner, had a really nice dinner, caught up. And it was actually the first time in 16 days that she was able to take off because of all the decisions that are coming out from the Supreme Court now. They were actually making it back then in March. And she said, Dario, I've known you for a long time, but do you think that can I ask you for something? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I really want to meet Bad Bunny. And I was like, okay, yeah, we can make that happen. There's he's having his residency. We're doing a couple suites for some folks. And I can make a phone call. So this is where the Andover kind of angle comes in. I have a friend, Kenny Hamilton, who he and Scooter Braun discovered Justin Bieber back in the day. Kenny attended Andover, the MS² program. Kenny's one of my best friends, and that's where we met at Andover that summer, and then when I was a PG. So I called Kenny. Kenny is really, he's best friends with Noah Assad, who's Bad Bunny's manager, because Noah, he mentored Noah in kind of like that whole music business. And I said, Kenny, Justice Sotomayor really wants to meet Benito. And he was like, oh, yeah, we got to make that happen. So fast forward, we go to Puerto Rico earlier this summer. We set up a suite through Noah and obviously Kenny's help. And we go backstage, and this was a really, really cool moment because these are two Latino, just iconic figures, right? And we were backstage, and Bad Bunny comes out in white, looking like Jesus Christ walking on water, and then you have Justice Sotomayor, and Bad Bunny's like working on his vocals, and then he stops, and then they both looked at each other, and it was like this beautiful silence, and everybody's like, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta introduce these folks, right? Like we put this together. So I said, I said, Justice Sotomayor, please meet Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, aka Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, please meet Justice Sotomayor in the United States Supreme Court. And I just kind of walked away and let them kind of take that moment. And Justice Sotomayor said, and I this is like I get goosebumps when I tell this story. She says, Benito, I want to tell you that everything that you're doing for Puerto Rico, for our culture, I respect that. I love it, and I want to thank you for that. Benito, the part of the reason that I came here and I wanted to watch the show, and I asked Dario, thank you to Kenny, and thank you to Noah for setting this up, is because my mom passed away in 2021. And today is Sunday, and on Tuesday in my OS, which is on the other side of the island, we're having her memorial for my family here in Puerto Rico. So the timing here worked out really well. And Benito, I wanted to tell you in person that when she passed away, you did an homenaje. An homenaje is like when you honor people from like Puerto Rico. So she had, they had Mark Anthony, they had Hector Lavoe, and then they had Justice Sotomayor's mom holding the Bible when she was taking the oath of honor for the Supreme Court. And she says, Benito, that moment and your music when my mom passed away really got me through her depression. And I'm here to tell you in person that I wanted to thank you for that. Whew. Guys, when I tell you that the whole group and like even her security was like in tears, it was an incredible moment. And he had his glass, Bad Bunny had his glasses on and he took them off and he's like, his eyes was watery. And she basically gave him, and she's like, Benito, I want to give you this gift. It's my autobiography in Spanish, which they don't do anymore. And I personally autographed it for you. And I just wanted to thank you for providing this moment for me and for me to thank you in person. And that was just a beautiful moment. And she said, these are my family and my close friends. Would you mind if we take pictures with you? So we took pictures, we went to the suite, enjoyed a beautiful 3-hour show. Cultural, as my friend Juno Diaz, Pulitzer Prize winner, calls it, culture phenomenon show. And it was just an incredible moment in Latino history and just getting people together. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as a postgraduate student in Andover. I used to hang out with foreign students. I used to hang out with kids from China and Tibet and like these countries that I hadn't even heard of, right? And I think that opportunity has always provided me with kind of like that skill set to just bring good people together and try to find commonalities among folks. And I encourage you guys, especially the folks that are still students at Andover, to kind of step out of your comfort zone and meet people that you would normally not meet. And then I'll share this as the last thing and I'll stop. And so we were leaving the concert. Concert ends at 12. We leave it at 12:30. For security, it says, okay, we can go. So we go, and obviously she has 2 armored vehicles and then the Sprinter van for the family and friends, myself included in there. And then a bunch of motorcycles, which look like James Bond, right? Because I'm never used to that, right? I grew up in Lawrence, like I've never seen that, like a motorcade. And then so she's in really good mood. She's like, you can tell that like, obviously like her work is very intense, but you can tell that like pressure's coming off her shoulders because she can finally say, give her mom a proper burial. And so I was going back to the printer and she said, Dario, where are you going? I was like, oh, I'm going to the Sprinter. We're all going back to the hotel. She's like, no, I have an extra space in my SUV. You're coming back with me. And I'm like, okay. So we go back, like the things go and like these like sirens and everywhere. And I'm like, wow, you guys don't stop for red lights, huh? They were like, no, I was like, damn, you guys drive like this in DC? They were like, yes, you have to come on with us more often. I was like, I'm putting my seatbelt on. And so she goes, and then so this is really cute. The justice says, Dario, thank you so much. I got to meet Bad Bunny today. I was like, Justice, with all due respect, Bad Bunny got to meet you. And don't think he didn't see that little Fenty bag and that beautiful dress you had on. Because that was beautiful. That was a beautiful moment. Her security was chuckling, her assistant, her best friend was chuckling. And we got back to the hotel. And that for me was a very like a circle moment, because my whole thing in terms of work and fundraising, it's always been my skill set has always been networking. And again, that was a skill set that I picked up and I was able to refine at my time at Andover, and I so appreciate that. And I just knew that in that moment that I was like, wow, we did something really special. And just fast forward, I'm still in contact with Bad Bunny, Benito. I'm in contact with Noah. Obviously, he was just announced for the Super Bowl, which I think is going to be an incredible moment, not only for Latino culture, but just in music in general. You know, the NFL is expanding to 16 games outside of the United States. This is an artist, a transcending artist who sold out, you know, 30 shows across the world, including Australia and Japan. And so we're working on something really special where we're trying to put together, not trying, we're putting together a $100 million private fund that's going to go towards Puerto Rico infrastructure, education, and workforce development. And literally that opportunity came about because we brought Justice Sotomayor, and then we had dinner like two nights after in San Juan, and it was just a really beautiful moment. And it was one of those things that, you know, I'll cherish for the rest of my life. And again, I thank Andover for that incredible opportunity and for giving me a sense of pride, not only in who I am and in my culture and in how I can continue to make a difference, but also in embracing other people's culture and being respectful of how we can all continue to make a difference in a very changing world and challenging world, obviously, that's today. But I just know that we just can't, you know, we got to continue to work, and we can't continue to lose hope. So that's my Justice Sotomayor story, which I thought was pretty cool.
Thank you, Mr. Collado. What an
Sure.
incredibly moving story. Thank you for sharing it with us, and one even with an Andover connection. Hi, everyone. My name is Keita, and I'm a senior from Tokyo, Japan, and Calgary, Canada. Our next question is from Mr. Egwuekwe. Your organization, CodeCrew, helped push legislation for the state of Tennessee to make computer science a statewide high school graduation requirement. Andover's graduation requirements include a swim test and courses in REL-FIL, world languages, visual and performing arts, and lab sciences, but there is currently no such computer science requirement. Nonetheless, our math, statistics, and computer science courses are some of the most rigorous and prestigious courses offered here at Andover. Can you share with us the importance of a computer science background for high schoolers today, and why this was such an important issue for you to champion?
Thank you so much, Keita. I definitely appreciate that question. And I certainly remember drown proofing at Andover and as well as the ropes course. And I assume that those are still traditions there. And those were important skills. But I also certainly have been shouting from the rooftops about the importance of computer science education. I mean, the reality today, in fact, I ask kids as young as kindergarten, you know, right up through college and so forth, is the amount of technology in your world increasing or decreasing? And they get it 100% correct. It's totally increasing. And we have a world today that's increasingly digital. And it's just fundamentally vital that young people know how digital systems work. We say at CodeCrew, we're trying to get algorithms on their menus before they're on the menus of the algorithms. All of us learned about photosynthesis in school. You know, I'm not in the agriculture industry. I'm not, you know, I'm not in medicine, but we learn about photosynthesis because it's important to agriculture, which is foundational to human civilization. And we're in a world today where that's increasingly digital. Young people must know how these digital systems work. So fundamentally there was the beginning for us. But on a higher level than that, we think about computational thinking. And there are really 4 principles of computational thinking. That is recognizing patterns, decomposing large problems into smaller ones, algorithms, and then abstraction and generalization of things. These things aren't just limited to computer science. They actually apply across subjects. But to be successful in computer science, you have to demonstrate those skills. And so we believe, and there's a lot of national evidence to support that the more exposure to computer science education young people get, the better it helps them across their other subjects. But in addition to that, quite frankly, I'm in Memphis. It is in the southwest corner of the state. Nearly half the African Americans in the state of Tennessee live in the city of Memphis. And we saw that, you know, it's not just that large population, but our largest and fastest growing demographics in Memphis are the ones who are most underrepresented in tech. And if you're looking at the cities that are in the places that are prosperous today and tomorrow, it's the ones that are generating tech producers. And we selfishly want to have a culture of tech producers here in my hometown as a model for the rest of the country, to show the country how to dig into its bench of talent that is not just for white and Asian males. And so the only way we could think of to make sure that every child got it was to say, let's push a state level. Let's actually have a statewide initiative to make sure that every child in every school in every grade has access to quality computer science education that is foundational to a 21st century education, as foundational as reading and writing and arithmetic. And so we partnered with a great group of other organizations, locally in the state of Tennessee, but also nationally, including Code.org and the College Board, to get that across the finish line. And we're certainly proud of that, because that legislation not only required every high school student to have at least a year of computer science to graduate, but it also had requirements for middle school and standards for elementary school. It also had recurring funding for teacher professional development to make sure we trained up teachers to be able to teach computer science in schools. And so every year, 1 million kids across the state of Tennessee are being positively impacted by this legislation that we were proud to get passed in 2022. And it's increasingly apropos now. We all are seeing the impact of artificial intelligence, and we're all also seeing the ethics concerns that come along with that, from privacy and security to just access to even environmental concerns that that are resonating, especially here in Memphis, with so much happening in AI here. And so it is important, foundationally important to an education. It is foundationally important that we ensure there's universal access. And if we're going to ensure that we remain relevant and internationally competitive, this is just necessary for a modern education. And so that's why it was so important for us to champion. We're proud of that impact. We're proud of all the things we've accomplished in the 10 years we've been around at CodeCrew, and we're dreaming and executing on the next 10 years. So look out. That's what I say. So thank you, Kayla, for that very great question. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your response, Mr. Egwuekwe. Our next question is for Ms. Picott. In a funding landscape increasingly driven by data, scale, and innovation, how can small place-based nonprofits, whose impact is community-rooted but not easily quantifiable, reframe their value proposition to national founders without compromising their identity? How can they do so without diluting the deeply relational, hyper-local nature of their work, which often doesn't translate neatly into metrics or scalable models?
Thank you, Angelina. And I'm going to apologize to everyone in advance if I have to push the mute button if my dogs start barking. But to answer the question, first of all, that question presumes that small grassroots organizations, nonprofit organizations, are able to attract the attention of large national funders. And the sad reality is that they're just not. The organization I work for, the Lenny Zakim Fund, we work funding small grassroots organizations throughout Eastern Massachusetts, one of them being Aaron's Presence that Miss Akimoto on campus founded and runs. These organizations have operating budgets below $350,000. They are far below the radar of national funders, even some of our larger local funders like the Boston Foundation. And so if they're fortunate to get the attention of a larger funder, it's likely through networking. We, as an intermediary organization ourselves, which means we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that receives money, we grant out money. So we sit at the table oftentimes with large funders, and so have the ability to advocate on behalf of the organizations that we support, and help them to be able to talk about the important work they're doing in a way that hopefully will get them an invitation to submit an application. And even if they are, a lot of these organizations don't have a full-time grant writer. And so sometimes the person who founded the organization and is running the organization is that person writing the grant application. And so it makes it, they're really at a disadvantage in terms of being able to present a compelling grant application that's going to make them competitive. The other thing I wanted to say in response to the question is around compromising one's identity. Something that I found something that I just realized certainly very early on in my career, both as a lawyer and then in the nonprofit space, is the importance of being your true authentic self. And for nonprofits, if they have an opportunity to apply for a grant and they've got to perhaps bend themselves to be able to fit what the funder is looking for, ultimately it's not going to last or result in a long-term funding relationship with the organization or foundation. When it comes time for the nonprofit to have to submit a grant report and talk about what they actually did with the money, it's just a path that we encourage certainly the organizations that we fund to be real with themselves when it comes to what they're trying to achieve in their communities and stay true to themselves and be unapologetic about it. And a lot of the organizations that we work with aren't able to really do a lot, track or keep a lot of the data that funders are looking for. So one thing that we do and we encourage others to do is to embrace what we call what's known as Trustee Philanthropy. So to streamline the grant application process, to trust that the organization who's receiving the funds knows how best to direct those funds. So provide general operating support, unrestricted operating support. We also provide support for 5 years. So there's some ability for the nonprofit to do some planning and have some confidence that the money that we're giving them, they're going to be able to rely on for 5 years, up to 5 years. We also provide capacity building support, access to educational resources and pro bono legal services, because we also know that's really critical for organizations to become and achieve sustainability. Sustainability means different things to different organizations. Not every organization wants to be a large nonprofit. Some just want to continue to focus on their community and just do it better. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Picott. Hi, everyone. My name is Kendra, and I'm a senior from Southern California. Our next question is for Ms. Quinlan. You served as a corp member for City Year only 4 years after its founding in 1988. Now City Year has over 40,000 alumni who have worked across 29 cities in 250 different schools and is a brand name among educational nonprofit organizations. Your most recent shift to working at Upstream USA is an organization that sits in a sector facing potential government funding cuts. Does this further energize and embolden your organization's mission, and how do you plan for these headwinds in your development strategy?
Thanks, Kendra. It's a thrill to be here, so thank you. I will share that I got into development because when I was at Babson, I graduated. I got some funding from the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship to go to South Africa and help folks build small businesses, small business plans, XYZ. I was just over there cooking with gas, having a great time, like feeling like I was doing great work. 9 months down the road, my funding got cut and I felt completely disempowered, had to go back home, tail between my legs, like really feeling like I was leaving behind some good work. And I realized that I needed to understand fundraising. I needed to understand development in this nonprofit world. So that's when I pivoted my career into development. And, it's interesting as you look at organizations. Allison shared sort of the smaller nonprofits. There is just a small echelon of nonprofit startups that make it to that 100 million plus. Bridgespan just did an article on it. I can send it as a resource later, but it is something like less than 5%. It is tiny. And it's really about understanding your scale plan and your development strategy. So City Year, when I was a core member, and it was this scrappy little organization funded by these two very charismatic co-founders who went knocking on corporate doors and, got some money to start this program, was scrappy. They were kind of focused on that private corporate funding, and they realized that they wanted to grow, but that funding strategy was not going to work. They started talking, this was Bill Clinton days. There was this idea of starting national service, this idea for young people to do a year of service. Bill Clinton was elected president. And actually, I think it was 94, they launched AmeriCorps, which is a federal government program. That became a huge funding source for City Year. That paid for the AmeriCorps members, the young people in schools doing the program. So we had private funding, scaling with government funding. And then about 5 or 6 years later, City Year was like, well, we're doing all this work in schools. There wasn't a very strong measurement of that work. So they really drilled down to do a full evaluation of what are these AmeriCorps members, these City Year Corps members doing in schools? Is it moving the dial? Lo and behold, evaluation metrics showed that, yep, moving the dial. So then that opened the door to go to school districts and get local school district funding to say, hey, we are actually adding value here in the school. So now City Year has this diversified funding strategy of federal dollars through AmeriCorps, local funding through school districts, and private sector funding. And I know part of this question is like the headwinds in the government today. This administration has not zeroed out AmeriCorps yet. Who knows? But that is a something that every nonprofit is dealing with as things are shifting, and you really just have to keep a pulse on it. At Upstream, which is only 10 years old, so I feel we are still very much in a startup in scaling mode. Upstream is 100% privately funded. A big chunk of it is through venture philanthropy, which is a model of big bets on ideas, on missions, on an organization that has proven to this group that they can, at scale, at nationwide, change. So one of our partners, Blue Meridian Group, you can pop on their website and see the organizations that they're taking big bets on. Upstream is lucky to be one of them, where they're really believing in us and that our systems change model of partnering with health centers, working with those health centers to provide a patient-centered approach to contraceptive care, make sure that that health center through supply chain has every method of birth control that a person could need, and is set up to bill and get reimbursed for those services. This kind of approach that we're doing, 12 to 18-month training program with these health centers across the country, we are seeking to reduce unplanned pregnancies, which is one of the biggest factors of putting people on a trajectory of poverty when they have an unplanned pregnancy. So this model where we're seeing headwinds, like we Upstream, we're privately funded, we're cooking with gas, but this administration in January, the CDC pulled contraceptive guidelines off their website. In February, by court order, they had to put back on contraceptive guidelines on their website, but with a disclaimer that the administration doesn't support this content. We've seen Title X funding decrease, which is how many reimbursements for contraceptive care happen. There's been Planned Parenthoods being cut funding. We have seen in Idaho that a third of OBGYNs have left practice. So again, reducing access to care. We've seen a lot of federal healthcare centers, particularly in rural centers, in anticipation of Medicaid cuts closing, because that is how they run on these Medicaid reimbursements. We are also, kind of anticipating or, holding our breath to see what happens with the Affordable Care Act, and what, insurance will be available to folks? Will preventive care, will contraceptive care still be part of the coverage? These are the factors that we're finding headwinds with, and just to the best of our ability, supporting our healthcare center partners so that we can provide access.
All right,
and
thank you. Anything else?
No, I just, in the chat, America is under attack. I just got that note from one of the iPhone users, and that is true. And there's so many alliances that are, advocating for and lobbying for the continuation of AmeriCorps.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Quinlan. Our next question goes back to Mr. Collado. The Hispanic Heritage Foundation received a lot of press last year when they partnered with IBM to connect members of the Latinx community with Spanish-based IT learning courses through IBM's Skills Build platform, creating new pathways to careers in technology. Can you share with us the importance of bridging for-profit and nonprofit initiatives together in this way for underserved communities, and any updates on that program and its impact?
Absolutely. So I think so that's one of our partnerships at HHF that we have is with IBM and its Skill Sets program. And the idea there is, private public partnerships, which I think Nicole, you had kind of mentioned. I think a lot of those partnerships are going to be more evident and more you're going to see more of them moving forward as, unfortunately, federal government cuts more funding, and so private companies kind of have to really figure out how they're going to slice essentially their pie as it pertains to funding. I think for us, the opportunity, obviously, and Meka, you're part of this, is how do we teach the next generation of leaders in tech? How do we teach not only entrepreneurship but coding, for example? So we work with a lot of companies such as Google and TikTok and Meta and others, and we teach kids how to code all across the country in underserved communities. And the idea there is that then we can kind of potentially introduce them to an internship opportunity at these companies and potentially a full-time opportunity. And that's how we look to create a pipeline, I should say, of talent for the next generation. Because quite frankly, a lot of folks, you can do coding and you don't necessarily need now a 4-year degree, just because pathways are changing. I think the other thing that we're trying to do as a foundation, and me personally, as I work with folks, is how do you incorporate AI in the next 5 years? I think AI is going to be super, super interesting, and there's going to be tremendous amount of opportunities. But also, how do you change? And again, this is a lesson, guys, everyone here is with an Andover connection is blessed, right? Because people go to places like Andover because they're magical places where you can actually talk about these incredible and crazy ideas that may not make sense to many, to a larger group, but make sense to your other students and your classmates and your colleagues. And I think that's a very important lesson. So that when you have these, different ideas about changing the world, for example, that you can try to put those into play. So the last thing I'll say is one of the things that so I was in Miami for a couple of days watching the New York Mets. They didn't make the playoffs, unfortunately. But one of the things that working there with Juan Soto of the New York Mets is he's starting his foundation. Obviously, tax purposes is one angle, but more importantly, I'm helping him on structuring his foundation where, we can do baseball academies, right? Which a lot of baseball players have done, but trying to introduce, okay, how do we teach the players that don't make the major leagues? How do we teach them how to code? Because if we can teach them how to code, then and they don't make the major leagues, then maybe there's an opportunity there for them to have a position at a Google or TikTok, because then that's how you're going to really change the paradigm and maybe give these young individuals that potentially didn't make the major league level, but can now, have a job that pays them $150,000, $200,000 in the tech space. And if, that works, which we're kind of putting together now, I think that's going to be potential future model to teach other folks in other industries how they can transition into kind of like this code, tech space, because that's essentially where we're moving towards in the next 5 years as I think as a country, but more importantly as industries.
Thank you so much, Mr. Collado. Our next question is for Mr. Egwuekwe. Your work is so clearly deeply rooted in your hometown of Memphis. For Christmas at age 10, your parents gave you a Texas Instrument TI-99 for the first 16-bit home computer. Memphis is historically known for its rich culture and grit, but is now forging its path as the digital Delta, a hub for innovation, technology, and opportunity with a recent $12 billion investment from xAI's Gigafactory, an initiative by Elon Musk that will house the world's largest supercomputer, putting Memphis at the forefront of artificial intelligence. As a result, thousands of jobs will be created across tech, engineering, construction, and other industries. And Memphis is now competing with Silicon Valley, Austin, and other tech powerhouses, proving that world-changing innovations can happen anywhere. How much of this boom did you predict 10 years ago when you started CodeCrew?
Thank you so much for that great question, Kendra. And first of all, you've done your homework, which I appreciate. But I'm not sure if we're necessarily competing with those market leaders yet. But that's where we're trying. That's the direction where we're heading. Many of us have worked hard, not just 10 years, but CodeCrew's been around for 10 years, but many of us have been in the ecosystem here for 20 years. Trying to build a thriving tech ecosystem in a world where if you put Memphis and tech in the same sentence, that would evoke laughter many moons ago. And so, but we also recognize that, again, to the point that I made earlier, is that if your relevance is the new currency, and our relevance as a city and as a region depended on a lot on tech, which was undergirding every industry. And if you're not generating those tech producers, especially those tech creatives, then your relevancy diminishes. And so that's the ecosystem that many of us in this market invested in. Organizations like StartCo, which focuses on entrepreneurship, and Epicenter and others, but as well as in education and so forth. When you think about ecosystems, what do they need? They need jobs. And our history in this city has long been too much of only focusing on jobs. But not only do you need jobs, you need education, you need research, you need entrepreneurship. These things are foundational to any sort of thriving tech ecosystem, or any sort of ecosystem, period, thriving, industry-based ecosystem. And those things start to feed on each other: the jobs, the research, the education, the entrepreneurship. Right? How do we grow all those things together? And so, how many of us, yes, we're of the mindset of how do we set the environment here such that this place becomes a more attractive place for investment? And so, yes, xAI is coming, and certainly that's not been without controversy, but because of challenges in that regard. But not only have they built the largest supercomputer in the world, they're building a second one here that's even bigger. There is Google just announced that they're building a $10 billion data center across the river. Ford is building its largest EV plant called Blue Oval City, about 40 miles outside the city. So there's a lot of attention there, but really a handful of data centers and auto plants don't really make a tech boom in and of themselves, right? But they do signal more attention and more interest and more momentum in what we're building here in Memphis. And I love what you said about innovations can happen anywhere, because we firmly believe at CodeCrew and many of our partner organizations around this area and around the country firmly believe that talent, intelligence, these things happen everywhere, right? What's not everywhere is opportunity, right? And so how do we then connect talent with opportunity? It does come through building the infrastructure, the systems that you need around thriving tech ecosystems, and ensuring that we achieve access to those opportunities as universally as we can as that ecosystem grows. And so we're not where we want to be, but we certainly are proud of what we've accomplished. And really building on the tradition of all the things that you mentioned culturally. This is definitely a food town. Like I love barbecue. I'm from Memphis, and but we're a culturally relevant town too, especially when it comes to music, from B.B. King and Otis Redding and Isaac Hayes from back in the day to Juicy J and Glorilla today. um, and so how then do we leverage those strengths for people in the world to see the bigger reality of who we are, and then how then are we a model in this unfortunately disproportionately poor market? How are we a model for the rest of the country and the world on how you can leverage the moment, leverage your strengths, and build thriving tech ecosystems? That's the gospel I jokingly say that I preach, and so I'm certainly proud of what we've accomplished in terms of that ecosystem, and excited about what we're going to do next. So thank you very much for that great question.
Thank you, Mr. Egwuekwe. Our next question is for Ms. Picott. You made a bold and intentional decision at a young age to shift your career into the nonprofit world. Can you speak to what led you to make that shift and why you have stayed in this space ever since? You have risen to the highest levels of leadership in your professional career, serving as an executive director of a nonprofit organization and trustee of Andover. How do you measure your own success, and how do both your organizations, the Lenny Zakim Fund and Andover, measure success?
Thank you, Brady. So the long and the short of it is I was practicing law. I was a litigator. I had wanted to be an estates and trust lawyer, but could not get a job in that field. So, and I had bills to pay, law school loans. But a few years into it, I realized that it just wasn't personally gratifying. There was a partner, I was 31 at the time. There was a partner who I worked very closely with who was 50, and he was absolutely miserable, but he was stuck because he had to make money to put his kids through college, and he didn't know what else to do. And so that led me on a search to think about what was next. I've been involved with Andover pretty much since I graduated. And by 29, I had received the Distinguished Service Award for the various volunteer roles I had played in my 20s. And so that was a place that I was familiar with. And through my networking with friends, classmates, and other alums, figured out that fundraising would allow me to transfer a lot of the skills that I had developed as a lawyer. And I was fortunate enough to, there was a job opening in Office Academy Resources, and I was fortunate enough to receive a job offer. My second day of my new career and at work at Andover was 9/11. And for me to be in a place that means so much to me, it was sort of a validation that my decision to find a job that was personally gratifying and to lead the law was the right thing to do. I found that my work in the nonprofit space really speaks to my values, who I am as a person, and allows me to marry that with the many skill sets that I've been able to develop. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to continue to evolve in my volunteer roles at Andover. In terms of measuring success, really fulfillment, happiness, financially, yes, that's always important. But if I'm being valued and appreciated where I'm working, part of it is also overcoming my doubts and the doubts of people who, and there have been many people I've encountered along the way who've questioned my ability to meet the moment of a particular job opportunity. And the ability to figure things out, because we all encounter roadblocks or speed bumps along the way, and figuring those out. measuring success for PA, I would say, putting my hat on as a trustee, our success is that students graduate from Andover, having made connections, important connections, both in and outside of the classroom, and learned, but also to go forth and have a fulfilling life, however graduates define it, and to stay connected with Andover. For the work I do every day, it's really helping nonprofits realize sustainability, and as I said earlier, in however they define success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Picott. Our next question is for Ms. Quinlan. You have given back to Andover in so many ways and in so many capacities as a class agent, reunion planning chair, gift planning agent, alumni council member, annual giving board member, and annual giving board member. How does your professional role driving development strategy complement your work at Andover, working with classmates and fellow volunteers to expand your philanthropic impact?
Thanks, Barrett. First and foremost, and you've probably heard this knit through everyone's comments, the Andover community is something so very special. Dario mentioned his, friends in his class who to this day are still involved and, part of his network and, helping him have a kick-ass night with Justice Sotomayor and Bad Bunny, which is so amazing. But it all starts within your 4 years. And I know students, you are making friends, you are learning about different cultures and different countries. I mean, I was a day student from Andover and, kind of grew up in New Hampshire, and really my world was very small and it grew very big in Andover. And even though I think I see Daryl on this call who, have been friends with since 9th grade, lugging around his West Quad posse turntables, and that friendship has transcended, but other classmates I have, gotten to know at reunions or at regional events. At Alumni Council, you get to meet, folks from all different classes. And, I truly believe that non-civi is really everyone in the Andover community has that thread within them. And that's kind of how we all present. And it just really is a type of community that I want to be a part of. And it's like no other group that I've been a part of. We're so consistently, I've met people and have always had an interesting conversation and really always felt better coming out of it. So I do insert myself in all of these things. And in terms of how that helps as a class agent in the development strategy, so many people are philanthropic and they seek to, with their gifts, support something meaningful, see that their gift has an impact. And a gift to Andover is meaningful, does have impact. It is very easy with an alum who may have, we're in high school at Andover and the frontal lobes are developing and adolescence can be like a holy hot mess, but you kind of get out of it and you are, still within the community and, you kind of get out and you can start really thinking about that value and that meaningfulness. And you really want that for the next generation, for those leaders, for folks that are in nonprofits, in corporate, living their lives, to have that type of experience, to be able to have experience speaking with people from other cultures and learning from them, people that have that non-civi value, hardworking, curious, all of that. So that's really, for me, how I think of the Andover experience, how meaningful it is, and how that can help as we all know that we need to raise funds for Andover.
Thank you, Ms. Quinlan. Your guidance is very wise. We are over time, but I'm wondering if others on the panel can similarly offer very brief advice to us as young people interested in pursuing careers in nonprofits and philanthropy. What advice would you give to people who often feel driven to do that type of work, but aren't sure how to make the first step? Maybe we could start with you, Mr. Collado.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I think the advice that I would give is try to identify a lane that you're passionate about, that you enjoy the work, and that you think that you can really make a difference. And I think the rest kind of takes care of itself. Reach out to the right folks, work on identifying mentors that can help you kind of on that path, and can introduce you to other individuals that might have similar interests, and that you could, kind of share different ideas with. I think that's very important. And then finally, again, find something that you're passionate about, that you care about. For me, when I was at Andover, and obviously being from Lawrence next door, my passion has always been the Latino community and how I can try to be a beacon of light, try to better my community as a whole. And that's kind of led me to the work that I do today. Obviously, Nicole, as you mentioned, in fundraising and in raising funds and then just trying to think outside of the box of how we can create different opportunities for mass amount of individuals.
Thank you so much. Could we get a answer from Mr. Egwuekwe?
Sure. And let me just say, first of all, I was trained, as a software engineer. That's what I did for 19 years. You could not have told me I was going to go and launch and run a nonprofit organization. That being said, I can share some perspective of someone who didn't set out on this path. And so much of it echoes what Dario just mentioned. But if I could just, plus one that and add a little bit, first of all, you want to find something you're passionate about. But I want to also say that nonprofit work and philanthropy, that whole space is a great space that's worthy of your talents, right? Is a great and challenging space. And all too often we don't think about that. Well, all too often we think about doctor, lawyer, engineer, kind of stereotypical things. And I want to encourage everyone that it is a viable pathway to make a real difference in the world, and so definitely worthy of your talents. All the points that were made about networking, I say to young people all the time, is when you're going to school, it's not just about what you know, it's about who you know. You're building the networks now of your peers and classmates, and you'll do the same in college and beyond. And so those networks, those relationships are foundational, especially the point Dario mentioned about mentors. And then you're in a position to lift as you climb, right? So be mentor, but also mentor others. And volunteering is a great way to be involved and learn and get a feel for where you want to make your impact in this work. And I can tell you time and again, I've gotten more out of being a volunteer than I gave in volunteering, and that was a very pleasant surprise. And so, but the network that you grow from that too, and people seeing you in action, being involved in something you're passionate about, pays off for you to step into this work at a greater level. And so survey the landscape of nonprofits out there that exist. I encourage people all the time. In Memphis, we have a huge problem of duplicative nonprofits. We have lots of nonprofits that are, that exist, and then someone has an idea, I want to do something, and then they create a new nonprofit instead of working with something that's already existing. So, and then they're all fighting for the same small pool of funding dollars. And so I say, don't create something new if there's something already existing, unless you're solving a problem that something already existing isn't doing. And then the last thing I say, if you do step out and create a nonprofit, or if you become get in a impactful role at a nonprofit, I'm a huge advocate of not just being dependent on philanthropy. If philanthropy is important, but having an earned revenue model, if the services that you provide can earn revenue, that goes a long way. At CodeCrew, we track 5 categories with respect to revenue. We aspire for a 6th, but we track earned revenue, which is the largest share of what we do. Individual donors, which sadly is the smallest share of our revenue, as well as private philanthropy, like foundations and so forth, corporate support, and government grants. And that 6th one we'd love to add is investment income. If we get to where we're so mature as an organization. But having a mindset where earned revenue is a part of the model helps with the sustainability, such that you're less dependent on philanthropy, because sometimes philanthropy can be a little fickle. Sometimes it's a squirrel moment. I think I saw that in a movie somewhere with my kids, and where they say squirrel and things go that way. I'm not knocking philanthropy. I'm simply saying that you're building something, build something robust, and earned revenues needs to be a part of that math. And so, and then the last thing I'll say is partner and collaborate is so important, right? That you multiply your effectiveness when you partner with others who have other strengths, and you focus on your core competencies, and together you actually make a even greater difference. And so 1 + 1 = 3 in many of those instances. So I'll end my answer there before I get carried away. So that's some Mekaology for everyone to enjoy and chew on this evening.
I love that Mekaology. All right. So I'm not going to repeat what Dario or Meka have said, but what I would say is Andover, we're so fortunate that there's so many, such a variety of volunteer opportunities, and it doesn't require that you give money, although certainly supporting the school is important. I think of my role on the Abbott Academy Fund was allowed me to read grant applications and to make grant decisions with a body of individuals. And that's stuff that I've drawn on in my current job. The opportunity just to sit on the alumni council or the regional association, working side by side with people from different decades, seeing the school from different perspectives has been really instrumental and key to my professional growth as an executive director. And I would say the relationships that I've made 20, 30 years ago, I'm still connected to a lot of those people, not just Andover as fellow Andover alums, but professionally as well. And that's really powerful. So I just want to encourage you all to make those connections and make sure that they're authentic. As Meka said, you're supporting people, you're helping people up as you're climbing yourself. That's so important.
And I'll just do 2 quick plugs for our students on the call and why you should think about the nonprofit sector for your career. One is oftentimes you get more face time, more responsibility than what your role might be. Like, for example, I have a coordinator on my team that I just set up to do a presentation to our board on AI. If you're in a corporate setting, it is unlikely that in your first 2 years of employ, you're going to be presenting to the board of trustees. So it's really a great place to get to do a lot of things. And the second thing is that even on your worst day, you can look up and say, you know what? I am helping people get birth control, and that is very important to me. I am helping students, when I was at City Year, get the tutoring and mentoring that they need. Like, even on your worst day, everyone has them on the job, and you can just be like, oh, bigger picture, I'm here for a reason. So think about nonprofit, please.
Thank you all so much for such thoughtful responses. On behalf of the entire Andover community, we are beyond grateful to all of our alumni panelists for their time tonight. The well-known British statesman, military officer, and writer Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." This evening inspired so many of us, as current Andover students, the alumni community, and beyond, to find careers that drive change and make a positive impact on our community. We are so grateful to hear about the impact that you're all leading in your organizations, fueled by Andover's core value of non-civi. I will now turn it over to Mrs. Savino to close today's program.
Thank you, Kendra, and thank you to all of our stars. For alums across the decades, you can imagine that it's kind of a big step for uppers and seniors to kind of take to the podium, if you will, and ask questions with people that they've never met. And our pitch to them is that this is their family. This is their Andover family. It's across the decades, and it's forever and ever. So come on in, lean in, and help us do our work. Nicole, I very much appreciate what you said, and to the rest of the panelists. As a person who works every day for a nonprofit, I find great joy. And our panelists tonight are 4 examples of why we have such a wonderful way to spend our days working for Andover. And frankly, everybody on the screen is working for Andover together. As folks know, we have non-civi projects that we do, which are projects when we reach out to nonprofits and do something with them. If there is anyone on this screen who would like to invite Andover to work with their organization in a non-civi project, please email me, or frankly, you can just write to alumni@andover.edu. So in our pitch that it is truly Andover for life, a very, very big hug of gratitude to our panelists for making the time to demonstrate just that. We extend a warm invitation to come physically to campus whenever you are able. And until then, I will send our uppers and seniors off to do their homework and wish everyone else a very good evening.